Every morning, the school hallway was a battlefield for Lyra. She was not like other students. Her skin shimmered faintly under the lights, her eyes were larger than human eyes, and her delicate fingers glowed with soft blue patterns whenever she touched something. She was an alien, and she had to use a wheelchair to move around. But the bullies made sure her mornings were the worst part of her day. Every single day, without fail, they would sneak up on her, push her wheelchair aside, and laugh as they blocked her path. "Out of the way, freak," one would shout. Another would snatch her backpack and toss it across the hallway. Lyra would stay quiet, feeling the sting of humiliation, but her heart ached more than her body. Most students ignored it. Some were too scared to interfere. The teachers were busy with their own work and barely noticed the chaos. Lyra felt invisible, trapped in a world where no one understood her. But today felt different. There was a nervous energy in the air, almost like something was about to change. As she slowly wheeled herself down the corridor, her glowing fingers brushing lightly against the armrest, she sensed movement behind her. "Not again," she muttered, bracing herself. The bullies appeared like shadows, circling her wheelchair. One of them leaned forward with a cruel grin. "Hand over your seat, alien," he sneered. Lyra tried to move faster, but her wheelchair wasn't built for speed. It rolled only so quickly, no matter how much she pushed. Her heart pounded, and her eyes glistened with unshed tears. The other students watched quietly, some with pity, others with fear. Just as the lead bully reached to push her again, a hand shot out from the crowd. "Stop," a boy shouted. Everyone froze. The boy was human, a regular student with messy brown hair and bright green eyes that seemed to hold fire. He walked straight toward the bullies without hesitation. There was something in the way he moved, calm, yet unstoppable, like a force the bullies had never seen before. "Get away from her," he said firmly. The bullies laughed. "Or what?" one challenged, stepping closer. The boy didn't flinch. Instead, he bent down, gently lifted Lyra from her wheelchair, and held her carefully in his arms. Gasps echoed through the hallway. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. She had never felt someone so kind, so protective. And yet, a small part of her was terrified. Humans could be unpredictable, and even kind ones sometimes turned cruel. But this boy's eyes were different. They didn't hold cruelty or mockery. They held determination. And in that moment, Lyra felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The bullies froze, unsure what to do. One of them stepped forward, but the boy's gaze met his, unwavering. "I said leave her alone," he repeated, his voice calm but commanding. For the first time, the bullies hesitated. They muttered under their breath, clearly unsettled by his confidence. One by one, they backed away, grumbling as they disappeared around the corner. Lyra's small frame relaxed slightly. She blinked, unable to believe what had just happened. The boy smiled gently. "Are you okay?" he asked. I think so," Lyra whispered. Her voice was soft, but filled with awe. He carried her down the hallway, past the lockers and students, until they reached the classroom. Every step made her feel lighter, not just physically but emotionally too. She realized that maybe, just maybe, someone finally saw her as more than just the alien girl in the wheelchair. As he set her down in her seat, she noticed the other students staring, whispering among themselves. The boy turned to them and said, "She belongs here just like everyone else. If you have a problem with that, you'll have a problem with me." The room went silent. Lyra could barely comprehend the bravery she had just witnessed. She wanted to thank him, but words failed her. Instead, she smiled softly, feeling a warmth in her chest she hadn't known before. And as the classroom door closed behind the last bully who dared to linger, Lyra realized something important. Maybe the world wasn't completely cruel. Maybe kindness could be found in the most unexpected places. But deep down, she also knew this was just the beginning. The bullies would not forget what had happened, and she would have to face them again. Yet for the first time, she didn't feel completely alone. Someone was on her side. And that made all the difference. After the classroom door closed, Lyra tried to calm her racing heart. Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted her position in the wheelchair. She kept staring at the boy who had saved her. His name was Max. She remembered a classmate mentioning it once, but she had never spoken to him before. Max sat a few seats away, casually opening his notebook, as if nothing unusual had happened. Yet the quiet confidence in his green eyes made Lyra feel safe in a way she had never felt before. Whispers started spreading around the classroom. Some students were impressed, some were shocked, and a few seemed jealous. "Who does he think he is?" one boy muttered. "He can't just carry her like that." Lyra ignored them. She was too overwhelmed by the kindness she had just received. Still, a small part of her feared the bullies' next move. She knew they wouldn't forget so easily. By the end of the first class, the hallways were buzzing. The bullies were already plotting, whispering in corners, their faces twisted with anger. They didn't know it yet, but things had changed. Lyra wasn't just the quiet alien girl anymore. She had someone who would stand with her. During lunch, Max approached her table. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked, smiling politely. Lyra shook her head. No, not at all." He set his tray down, careful not to bump her wheelchair. "I saw what happened this morning," he said quietly. "I couldn't just watch." Lyra's cheeks flushed. "Thank you," she whispered. I didn't think anyone would help me." Max shrugged, as if it was no big deal. "No one deserves to be treated like that. You're just different, that's all. There's nothing wrong with being different." For the first time, Lyra felt a little smile break through her sadness. Someone finally understood. But even as they talked, shadows lurked nearby. The bullies watched from across the cafeteria, plotting their next move. They wouldn't let this slide. They were clever, mean, and determined to make Lyra's life miserable again. Later that afternoon, Lyra rolled down the corridor to her next class. She tried to focus on her glowing tablet, but a sudden loud laugh made her stop. The lead bully, Rick, blocked her path, flanked by his two friends. Well, looks like someone got a little hero to help them out," Rick sneered. "Think he can save you every time?" Lyra's hands gripped the wheelchair tightly. Fear threatened to take over. But before she could panic, Max appeared at her side. "I told you to leave her alone," Max said calmly. Rick stepped closer. "Or what? You gonna carry her again?" he mocked. Max didn't reply. He simply moved slightly in front of Lyra, his eyes steady and unflinching. Something about the way he stood made even Rick hesitate. The other students in the hallway stopped to watch, curious and tense. Suddenly, Max did something unexpected. He tapped the side of Lyra's wheelchair. In a flash, her chair transformed. Panels slid open, small glowing thrusters emerged, and mechanical arms extended slightly on each side. It wasn't just any wheelchair. It was advanced alien technology, hidden under a simple exterior. The bully's jaws dropped. "What is that?" one stammered. "Lyra bilinket, startlet herself." She hadn't even realized the transformation was triggered. Max gave her a small nod. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're stronger than they think." With a soft hum, the wheelchair powered up. Lyra felt the boost as the small thrusters lifted her slightly off the ground. She rolled forward with surprising speed and grace, leaving the bullies staring in disbelief. Max followed close behind, blocking anyone who tried to approach. By the time they reached the classroom door, the bullies had backed away. Their confident sneers were replaced with confusion and a hint of fear. Once inside, Lyra lowered herself back to the normal height. Her heart was still pounding, but now it wasn't just fear, it was excitement. She realized she could defend herself in ways she hadn't imagined. And with Max by her side, she didn't have to face the bullies alone. "Thanks for everything," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. Max smiled. "We'll handle it together. You don't have to be afraid anymore." Even as the bell rang and students poured into the hallway, a new sense of hope filled Lyra. But she also knew that danger was still close. The bullies weren't gone. They were planning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And that made her realize something important. Her life at school would never be the same again. Something extraordinary had begun. Something that would change not just her, but everyone around her. As she glanced at Max, she felt a spark of trust. For the first time, she believed that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. But somewhere deep in the shadows, the bullies whispered threats that promised their cruelty was far from over. The real test was only just beginning. The next day, Lyra arrived at school with a mix of nerves and excitement. She had never felt so alive. Max had promised to be there for her, but she knew the bullies were waiting, planning their next move. As she wheeled herself down the hallway, she noticed Rick and his friends whispering behind a corner, watching her closely. Their eyes were filled with anger and determination. Lyra took a deep breath. She wasn't going to let them scare her. Not today. Max appeared at her side again, as if he had expected her anxiety. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "We'll face them together." The first class passed without incident, but during lunch, the bullies made their move. They cornered Lyra near the cafeteria exit. Rick smirked. "Ready for another ride, freak?" he taunted. Before Lyra could react, Max stepped forward. "Leave her alone," he said firmly, but Rick just laughed. "You think you're a hero?" Rick sneered. "She's all alone if you're not around." Lyra looked at Max. She wanted to panic, but something inside her told her she could be braver this time. She touched the armrest of her wheelchair, and a soft blue glow spread across the controls. "You won't get away with this," she said, her voice steady. The bullies hesitated. They had seen her wheelchair transform before, but they didn't know the full extent of its abilities. Lyra pressed a small button, and the wheelchair's thrusters activated again, lifting her slightly above the ground. The mechanical arms extended, giving her a confident, almost heroic stance. Max stood beside her, ready to protect her if needed. Together, they made a striking pair. Human courage and alien technology combined. Rick stepped forward, trying to push them, but the other students started to gather around. Whispers and murmurs filled the hallway. Everyone was watching this unusual confrontation. Lyra realized she didn't need to fight alone. With Max by her side, she felt strong. The bullies began to step back, unsure what to do. But Rick wasn't done. He smirked, hiding a small device in his hand. "This isn't over," he muttered, pressing a button. Suddenly, a loud noise erupted, and small drones flew out from his backpack. They buzzed around Lyra and Max, creating chaos in the hallway. Students screamed and scattered. Max acted quickly. He grabbed Lyra's wheelchair controls, guiding it as it dodged the drones. "Hold on," he shouted. Lyra's heart raced. She had never used her wheelchair like this before. The thrusters gave her speed, and the mechanical arms helped her deflect the drones. Together, she and Max moved like a single team, weaving through the chaos. Finally, they reached a quiet corner of the school, safe from the drones. Lyra caught her breath. "I didn't know it could do all that," she said, astonished. Max smiled. "Neither did I. But now we know we can handle them together." Lyra felt a surge of confidence. For the first time, she wasn't just reacting. She was planning, thinking ahead. She realized she had power inside her, not just the wheelchair, but her mind, her courage, and the bond with Max. "We need a plan," she said, determination in her eyes. "They won't stop. They'll come up with something worse next time." Max nodded. "Then we'll be ready. We'll use their tricks against them, and we'll make sure they never hurt you again." The bell rang, and students began to fill the hallway again. Lyra and Max blended into the crowd, but they were not the same as before. They had discovered a new strength together, one that no bully could break. Even as they returned to class, Lyra felt the thrill of anticipation. The bullies were out there, plotting. But now she wasn't afraid. Every challenge would be a chance to prove herself. And with Max by her side, nothing seemed impossible. And somewhere deep in the shadows, Rick's eyes burned with anger. He wasn't done yet. Lyra and Max had survived his first attack, but he was already thinking about the next one. Lyra's heart raced, not with fear, but with excitement. The adventure had just begun. The day after the drone attack, Lyra couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with thoughts about Rick and his gang. They were clever, but she now realized she had an advantage. Her wheelchair wasn't just a chair. It was a secret weapon, and she had only scratched the surface of its abilities. At school, Max met her at the entrance. "Ready for today?" he asked with a grin. Lyra nodded. "I think it's time I learn everything this chair can do." They went to an empty classroom after the first bell. Lyra activated the chair, and this time, she tried a different combination of buttons. A holographic display appeared above the controls, showing diagrams, energy readings, and strange symbols. "It's incredible," Max whispered. It's like it has its own mind. Lyra studied the holograms. She pressed another button, and a soft light emerged from the wheelchair's armrests. Small energy shields formed around her. These can block attacks, she realized aloud. Mux watched in awe. Suddenly, a low hum echoed through the room. Another panel opened on the chair, revealing tiny grappling hooks and small wheels for climbing walls. Lyra's heart raced. This chair, it can do almost anything, she said. Mux smiled. Then we're going to need a plan. Rick won't give up. He'll try something bigger next time. As if on cue, a shadow appeared at the window. Rick and two of his friends were watching from outside, smirking. Lyra's hands tightened on the controls. They're serious, Max said. We need to be ready for whatever they throw at us. The next day, during lunch, the bullies struck again. This time, they set up obstacles in the hallway, books, chairs, and even some small traps that could trip anyone passing by. Students panicked, but Lyra rolled forward, powered by her chair's thrusters and shields. Max ran beside her, guiding her around the obstacles. You've got this, he encouraged. Lyra pressed a button, and the grappling hook shot out, pulling her wheelchair over a large pile of chairs. Energy shields deflected thrown objects. The bullies shouted in frustration, unable to stop her. By the time they reached the classroom, Lyra felt exhilarated. She had faced danger head-on and won. But she also knew this was only the beginning. Rick would come back, and next time he might have something even worse. Later that evening, Lyra practiced in her room. She discovered that her glowing markings could connect to the chair, giving her even more control over its abilities. It was as if the chair responded to her emotions and thoughts. She realized that the alien technology inside her wasn't just a tool. It was part of her. The next morning, Lyra and Max met with a new sense of determination. We're not just defending ourselves anymore, Max said. We're going to show them that being different is a strength, not a weakness. Lyra similet. And we'll do it together. But deep down, she knew the bullies were clever. Rick's anger burned brighter every day. Lyra and Max had discovered a new power, but they also knew that true danger was still lurking. The school would never be the same again, and neither would they. For the first time, Lyra felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope mixed with excitement. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was learning, growing, and preparing for the challenges ahead. And somewhere in the shadows, Rick's eyes narrowed. He wasn't finished, not by a long shot. Lyra and Max had found new strength, but the battle was far from over. The adventure had just begun. The school week passed slowly for Lyra and Max. Every day brought a new challenge. The bullies were watching, waiting, planning their next attack. But Lyra felt stronger. She had learned more about her wheelchair, and discovered how her glowing alien markings could power it even more. One morning, during the first period, Lyra noticed unusual activity in the hallways. Rick and his gang were gathering objects, pipes, sticks, even small firecrackers. They were clearly planning something big. Mux leaned closer. I think today's the day, he whispered. We have to be ready. Lyra nodded. Let's do this. When the bell rang for lunch, the hallways filled with students. Lyra rolled carefully, watching for traps. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the corridor. Firecrackers. Students screamed and scattered as smoke filled the hallway. Rick and his friends laughed loudly, confident they had the upper hand. But Lyra stayed calm. She pressed a button on her wheelchair, activating the shields. The mechanical arms moved swiftly, pushing obstacles aside. The thrusters lifted her slightly above the ground, allowing her to glide past the smoke in chaos. Max ran alongside her, ready to block anyone who got too close. You've got this, he shouted. Rick's gang lunged, but Lyra's wheelchair responded instantly. Small grappling hooks shot out, knocking sticks and pipes aside. The energy shields deflected thrown objects. Students gasped as they watched the alien girl move with incredible speed and precision. Lyra felt her confidence grow. She realized the chair wasn't just defending her, it was making her unstoppable. She rolled forward, and with a swift motion, she used the mechanical arms to gently lift Rick off the ground, holding him in place just long enough to scare him. Stop, she said firmly. This ends now. The hallway went silent. Rick's friends froze, unsure what to do. The other students stared in awe. No one had ever seen Lyra like this before. She wasn't just the quiet alien girl in a wheelchair anymore. She was a force to be reckoned with. Max stepped forward, standing tall. "If you want to be cruel," he said, "you'll have to face both of us." Rick's eyes widened. He had underestimated them. Slowly he and his gang backed away, grumbling and muttering threats. But this time, they didn't attack again. Not yet. After the hallway cleared, Lyra and Max paused. She was breathing heavily, but her heart was filled with triumph. "We did it," she whispered. Max smiled. "We did. But remember, they'll probably try something even bigger next time." Lyra nodded. She knew he was right. The bullies weren't finished. But she also knew something important. She was no longer alone. Max had shown her that courage and friendship could make even the hardest challenges easier to face. That night, Lyra practiced more with her wheelchair. She discovered that by focusing her thoughts, she could control the shields, thrusters, and grappling hooks even more precisely. It was like the chair could read her mind. The next day, when she rolled into the school, she felt a new sense of purpose. She wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was ready to take control of her life and face any challenge head-on. Rick and his gang watched from a distance, anger and frustration written all over their faces. They had been humiliated, and they wouldn't forget it. But Lyra didn't care. For the first time, she felt powerful, confident, and unstoppable. Max walked beside her, giving her a reassuring nod. Together, they had survived the school showdown, and they had grown stronger. The adventure was far from over, but Lyra realized one thing. She didn't need to be afraid anymore. She had the courage, the friendship, and the power to face whatever came next. And somewhere hidden in the shadows, Rick's eyes glowed with anger. He was already planning his next move, but Lyra knew she and Max would be ready. The real battle had just begun. The days after the school showdown felt tense. Rick and his gang kept a careful distance, but Lyra could feel their eyes on her at all times. She and Max knew it was only a matter of time before the bullies struck again, and this time, it might be worse. One morning, during science class, Lyra noticed strange devices hidden in the corners of the lab. Tiny cameras, wires, and sensors, clearly set up by Rick. It wasn't just about bullying anymore. He was planning something bigger, something that could humiliate her in front of the whole school. After class, Max whispered, "We need to find out what he's planning. This isn't just about pranks anymore." Lyra nodded. "I'll need to use the chair, everything I've learned so far. If we don't act, it could get out of control." They waited until the hallways were empty. Lyra activated her wheelchair, and the thrusters hummed to life. Small holographic screens appeared around her, scanning the devices Rick had hidden. The glowing markings on her arms pulsed, connecting her mind to the chair. She could feel the technology responding, as if it was alive. "They're connected to a network," Max said, watching the holograms. "We need to disable it before he triggers something dangerous." Lyra pressed a series of buttons, sending pulses of energy through the sensors. Sparks flew from the devices, and the screens went dark. The immediate threat was gone, but Lyra knew Rick would escalate. And escalate he did. Later that afternoon, the school announced a special event, a robotics competition in the gym. Lyra and Max entered together, but they soon realized Rick had rigged some of the robots. The plan was clear. He wanted to humiliate Lyra in front of everyone by making her robot fail spectacularly. As the competition started, Rick's tampered robot moved erratically toward Lyra's station. Students gasped as it seemed to target her, knocking over materials and creating chaos. Lyra didn't panic. She focused, letting the wheelchair connect with her thoughts. The grappling arms moved quickly, catching the robot and redirecting it safely. She used the thrusters to glide across the gym, dodging obstacles with precision. Max cheered her on. "You can do it. Keep going." The audience watched in awe. Lyra's wheelchair wasn't just a chair anymore. It was a combination of alien technology and human courage. With each movement, she showed skill, control, and bravery. The bully's plan was failing. Finally, Lyra pressed a final button, and the wheelchair emitted a wave of energy. Rick's tampered robot froze mid-motion, harmlessly shutting down. The gym erupted in applause. Lyra smiled, her heart pounding with victory. Rick's face turned red with anger. He had underestimated her, and now everyone knew it. But Lyra didn't gloat. Instead, she felt a quiet pride. She had faced the ultimate challenge and come out stronger, proving not only to the bullies but to herself that she was capable of amazing things. Max came over and lifted her hand. "You were incredible," he said, grinning. Lyra laughed softly. "We were incredible. Together." That evening, as they left the school, Lyra looked at the sky. She realized something important. Every challenge, every attack, every fear had helped her grow. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. But deep down, she knew the adventure wasn't over. Rick and his gang were defeated for now, but they would return, and Lyra would have to be ready. She had powers, friends, and courage, but the real test was learning how to use them wisely. And as she glanced at Max, she knew that with him by her side, she could face anything the world, or any bully threw at her. The story was far from over. The real battles, the ones that would shape Lyra's destiny, were only just beginning. The days after the robotics competition were quieter, but Lyra knew it was only temporary. Rick and his gang had been humiliated, but they were not defeated. They were angry, and anger can make people dangerous. Lyra wheeled herself through the school hallways, feeling stronger than ever. Her wheelchair had become an extension of her, responding to her thoughts, emotions, and even her glowing markings. She wasn't afraid anymore. She had Max by her side, and together, they were unstoppable. One afternoon, as she returned from the library, a crowd had gathered near the main hallway. Rick stood in the center, holding a strange device that pulsed with red light. He looked furious. "This ends today," he shouted. "You think you can humiliate me and get away with it?" Lyra's heart raced, but she didn't panic. She touched the armrest of her wheelchair, feeling the energy pulse through her. Max stood next to her, fists clenched, ready to defend her. Rick pressed a button on the device, and a wave of force shot toward Lyra. The students gasped as papers and objects flew through the air. But Lyra's wheelchair responded instantly. The energy shields flared, stopping the wave in its tracks. Max shouted, "Now Lyra!" Lyra's eyes glowed as she focused her mind. The wheelchair's thrusters lifted her, the mechanical arms extended, and a powerful pulse of energy shot forward, disarming Rick's device. Sparks flew, and the red light vanished. The bullies froze in shock. "You won't win," Lyra said firmly. "Not today, not ever." With careful control, she maneuvered her wheelchair to block Rick and his friends from approaching her or Max. The other students watched, amazed. Lyra was no longer just the quiet alien girl. They saw her courage, her power, and her determination. Rick's face twisted with frustration. He had tried everything, but nothing worked. Slowly, he backed away, muttering threats under his breath. This time, he knew he couldn't win against her. After the confrontation ended, the hallway was silent. Lyra lowered the wheelchair to the floor and looked at Max. "We did it," she whispered, smiling. Max grinned. "We did. You were incredible. You faced everything and never gave up." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. She realized she had changed. She was no longer afraid of the bullies, the school, or even being different. She had embraced who she was, an alien girl with extraordinary abilities. And she had learned that courage, friendship, and determination could overcome anything. From that day forward, the bullies never bothered her again. Lyra moved through the school with confidence, proud of who she was. And Max remained by her side, a true friend and ally. Lyra had learned an important lesson. Being different was a strength, not a weakness. And when someone stands beside you, believes in you, and fights with you, no challenge is too big. The school hallways that were once filled with fear and humiliation were now filled with respect and admiration. Lyra's story spread quietly among the students, not just as the girl who survived the bullies, but as the girl who rose above, with courage and power that inspired everyone around her. As she looked out the window at the sunset, Lyra smiled. The battles had been tough, the challenges dangerous, but she had grown stronger with each one. And she knew that no matter what the future held, she could face it, fearless, powerful, and never alone. Her journey was only beginning, and the world was ready to see her shine.